Hi students, I welcome you to session 1 of Things Around Us. So in today's session, we will learn about living things and non-living things. You know very well, students, that there are living and non-living things all around us. Just go outside and explore. You can find both living and non-living things. Even look inside your house and other buildings, such as grocery store. Can you think of some things that are living? How do you know that they are living? And how do you know that they are not living? Yes, there are some things like tree, fruit, flowers, cow, dog, cat, etc. These are living things. And some things are non-living, like building, table, chair, clothes, book, etc. So, we will take an example over here, like a carpenter. A carpenter makes chairs and many other things. Even toys and bicycles are made by people in factories. So things that are made by people are man-made things and they are non-living. Now, can we make a fish? Can we make the sun, flowers, or the air? No, we cannot. We cannot make these things. These things cannot be created by man or woman. They are created in nature. So these are living things. So this is the main difference between living and non-living things. So things that are created in nature are called natural things and they are living. And things which are created by man or women, they are man-made. Means things created by human beings. So always remember that a table, chair, pencil, clothes, etc. cannot grow. These things cannot talk or walk. So things which do not grow, move or respond are called non-living things. While a baby plant that grows into a big plant or into a tree, a puppy grows into a dog, a baby grows into a person, into a human being, into an individual. So things that grow, breathe and respond are called living things. So all man-made things are non-living things, but not all natural things are living things. While people, animals and plants are living natural things, with stars, mountains, clouds, air and water are non-living natural things. So this is the main difference between living and non-living things. Now, I welcome you to Learner's Planet, and in today's session, we are going to learn about the things around us. So let us start with today's session and learn more about the things which we see around us. Yes. Things around us can be divided into two groups, living and non-living. Living things are alive. They have life in them, while non-living things do not have life in them. For example, plants and animals, they have life in them, and non-living things do not have life in them. For example, plastic doll, clothes, rock, etc. So there are certain characteristics that make living things very different from non-living things. Like, there are some characteristics which depict that they are living things, like feeding, movement, excretion, death, growth, reproduction, structural organization, respiration. All these are characteristics of living things. So here we can see that we are surrounded by living and non-living things. All animals in plants are living things, and biology is the study of these living things. A cat playing with a ball is obviously living. A pigeon flying from tree to tree is also a living thing. So sometimes it is not so easy to decide. Plants are living things, but they do not play with balls or they fly. If something is living, it will carry out the characteristics of living things. Now, There are some examples like crystals, such as ice crystals. They form on a window, they grow bigger if the conditions are right. So we can say that it has the characteristic of living. So for something to be living, it has to show one or the other, or more than that, the characteristics of living things. Like sand, wood and glass, they are all non-living things. None of them show any characteristics of living things. So non-living things can be divided into two groups. First one, those which were never a part of a living thing, such as stone and gold. And the second group of non-living things are those which were once part of living things, like coal is a good example. It was formed when trees died and sank into the soft ground. And this happened many millions of years ago when the earth was covered with forests. Like paper is non-living, but it is made from trees. Jam is also non-living, but it is made from the fruit of the plant, and it was made from the fruit of a plant. So these are the two groups of non-living things. Yes. So now let us start with a new topic, and that is the characteristics of living things. So these are the characteristics of living things which makes it different from non-living things. Now we can consider anything living if they have one or more of the characteristics of living things. So let us start with the characteristics of living things. The first characteristic of living thing is structural organization. Yes, structural organization means obviously living things have a definite structural organization, means their bodies are made up of cells which are the building blocks of the body. So we know that their bodies are made up of cells, but what is meant by a cell? Yes, a cell is defined as the smallest living structure that is able to function independently. Means nothing is smaller than a cell. Means no living structure is smaller than the cell. Cell is the smallest living structure that is able to function, that too independently. Means it does not depend upon any other thing. It functions on its own. So here is the structural organization of living things. First of all, we will see here that these are the smallest living organisms which cannot be seen with naked eye, or we can say that they can be seen with the help of microscope. So these are cells. So a cell is the smallest living structure that is able to function independently, and a group of similar cells that perform a particular function form a tissue. Thereafter, a group of tissues performing a particular function in the body form an organ. And then a group of organs interacting with one another to perform a particular life process form an organ system, and finally many organ systems combine to form a human body or an organism. So let me write it down for you. Yes, the first one is cell. The second one is tissue. How can we define tissue? Yes, a group of similar cells that perform a particular function form a tissue. After that comes organ. Now how can we define an organ? Yes, a group of tissues performing a particular function in the body form an organ. Now same way, how can we define an organ system? Yes, how can we define an organ system? A group of organs interacting with one another to perform a particular life process form an organ system. Now here we can see that a group of organs interact with each other to perform a particular life process. To perform a particular life process means, what do we mean by a life process? Let me explain it more clearly to you students. Yes, life process means different processes that help an organism to stay alive is known as life process. So a group of organs interacting with one another to perform different processes that help an organism to stay alive form an organ system. For example, digestion, respiration, reproduction, etc. So this is the structural organization of living things. Now let us see that into how many categories these organisms can be divided. Yes, an organism can be made of one cell or more than one cell. This will be A, more than one cell, right? So an organism consisting of a single cell which performs all its functions is called a unicellular organism. For example, amoeba. This is a picture of amoeba and this is a beautiful picture of euglena. So amoeba, euglena, paramecium, etc. all these are unicellular organisms. Now here uni means one or single and cellular means cell. So an organism consisting of a single cell which performs all its function is called unicellular organism. Now here we discussed that an organism can be made of one or more than one cell. So what do we call an organism which consists of more than one cell, which is not only made up of a single cell? Yes, an organism consisting of several cells is called a multicellular organism. As we know that cellular means cell and multi means many, means more than one. Human beings are the best example to explain a multicellular organism, because human beings are also made up of several cells, as well as plants and animals. They are also made up of several cells. So these are unicellular and multicellular organisms. So always remember that there are organisms that are made up of one cell or more than one cell, and they are divided accordingly. So here we discussed about the structural organization. Now let us see that what are the other characteristics of living things. Yes, movement and response to stimuli. Students, most living things are capable of moving on their own. Like animals move from place to place in search of food and water, even to escape from danger and for various other reasons. But have you ever seen plants moving? No, plants cannot move on their own. Can they? No. However, they exhibit movement of certain plants such as leaves and roots in response to changes in their immediate environment. So what do we call this change which takes place in an immediate environment? Yes, we call it as something. What do we call as? A change in the immediate environment of an organism which produces a change in the activities of the organism is called a stimulus, right? And in plural form, we call it as stimuli, right? So a change in the immediate environment of an organism which produces a change in the activities of the organism is called a stimulus. Now here we discussed that plants cannot move on their own. They do not move on their own, but they exhibit movement of certain parts such as leaves and roots in response to change in their environment. So in this thing we call it as stimulus because this change in the immediate environment produces a change in the activity of the organism such as plant. So this we call it as stimulus. But what do we call an organism which reacts to the stimulus? Yes, an organism's reaction to a stimulus is called a response, right? So this is stimulus and response. For example, we will take an example of a plant over here, like leaves of touch me not plant, which is popularly called as Lajwanti in Hindi. So leaves of touch me not plant curl up when touched. So here touch is stimulus and curling up of leaves of touch me not plant is the response. So this is known as stimulus and response. Now let us get back to our slide. Yes, most living things are capable of moving on their own, like animals move from place to place in search of food and water, but plants cannot move on their own, right? And a change in the immediate environment which produces a change in the activities of the organism is called a stimulus, while an organism's reaction to a stimulus is called a response. Now there is one more special movement which occurs in the parts of the plant. So let us discuss about it. Yes, the movement of leaves, roots, etc. of a plant in response to external stimuli such as light, temperature, or gravity. Not temperature, only light and gravity, is called tropism. Right? So this is a new term for you all. Always remember. Now here you can see a beautiful picture of a plant which has leaves and flowers, and here is the sun. So the movement of leaves or roots, etc. of a plant in response to external stimuli such as light of a sun, and gravity is called tropism, because the plant is bending towards light. So this is called tropism. Like shoot of a plant, it grows towards light and the root grows towards gravity. Yes, here you can see that this is a plant. Now this is the shoot system and this is the root system. So always remember that shoot of the plant grows towards light and root grows towards gravity. This is towards light and this is towards gravity. Right? So always remember the tropism, movement of certain parts of the plant in response to external stimuli such as light and gravity is called tropism. Now let us discuss about other characteristic of living things. Yes, growth. We know that living things grow. For example, a child grows into an adult and a seedling grows into a tree. So here we can see that living things grow, while non-living things, they do not grow. Like a baby grows into a young boy or girl and then goes on to become a man or woman. Like a chick grows into a hen and a cub grows into a lion. Like plants also show growth. Like a seed, here you can see a picture that a seed grows into a sapling, which grows into a plant and then into a tree. Like a bud, PUD bud, grows into a flower, which further grows into a fruit. So non-living things do not grow while living things grow. We cannot get the seedling back from a tree, or we cannot become a baby again. Can we? No. So these are the characteristics of living things. Very important characteristics of living things. Now let us revise about them. Yes, we see many things around us. Some move on their own while others need something to move them. For example, a cockroach. Now here I'll take some examples like a cockroach, a tiger, etc. They move on their own. But a table, a chair, move only when we push or pull them. So these are non-living things. They do not show the characteristics of living things. So there are many differences between living and non-living things. Living things need food to grow, like food provides energy to them. Some plants, some animals like rabbits, cows, goats eat plants, and tigers, lions, jackals, vultures, and some other animals eat animal flesh and dead animals, respectively. So human beings and animals like bears and squirrels, they eat both plants and animals. While animals depend directly or indirectly on plants for food, and plants, as we know, that they prepare their own food. But non-living things cannot prepare anything on their own, like chair, rock, etc. Neither they prepare food, nor do they need to live. So all living things even grow using the energy they get from the food. All living things breathe, like a fish breathes through special structures called gills. Human beings breathe through lungs. Frogs breathe through both skin and lungs. All living things show movement. As we discussed, animals and human beings move from place to place or play one place to another, while plants show movement in some of their parts only. So your non-living things like car, bicycle and chair can also move, but not on their own. They need to be pushed or pulled by a human being, an animal or an engine to move. Therefore, movement is a feature of living things only. Living things feel. Like if we keep a plant outside, or if we keep a plant inside a dark room without getting sunlight, it wilts. This shows that plants feel changes in these surroundings. And this also shows that many plants shed their leaves in autumn and bear flowers in spring season. These are plants' response to the changing seasons, which gives response to the changing seasons. Similarly, animals and human beings also respond to changes in the environment. For example, if we switch on the fan in summer. Why do we switch on the fan in summer? Because we feel hot, and we wear woolen clothes in winter as we feel cold. Similarly, a dog hangs out its tongue when it feels hot, and an elephant fans its ears to keep itself cool in summer. Some birds migrate from one place to another as a response to change in weather conditions. Even animals and human beings have sense organs to help them feel these changes. On the other hand, non-living things, they do not respond to changes in the surroundings. This is because they cannot sense or they cannot feel any changes. So, these are the main differences between living and non-living things. So, for one to be living, they should have the characteristic, one or more characteristic of living thing. Right? So, learned about some characteristics of living things. There are other characteristics of living things too, like excretion, respiration, reproduction, feeding, lifespan and death. So we will discuss about all other characteristics of living things in next session. Till then, keep enjoying, keep learning. Bye-bye, and thank you very much, students.